I want to give you a short video on how my marble sorter worked and run through some of the code with you. Hopefully it'll help you when you are writing some of your code. So for my material sorter, hopper removed for visuals, but the marbles will roll on this track. The aluminum do fall through because they're a little bit smaller than the other ones. All the other ones will line up right at the end here, right underneath the flashlight and the light sensor. When the program starts, it will determine what type of marble it is. A servo connected to a chain and sprocket system will turn my bin system, and once it's in the correct location, a motor that is connected to a gear and a rack gear. So this is a regular spur gear, this is a rack gear, which is connected to a drawer slide. This will turn. As this turns, this will kick the marble off, and it knows to stop when this little indicator that I attached to the drawer slide hits this first limit switch. At that point, it will then reverse until the back of the rack gear will hit another limit switch, telling it to stop. Overall, it's a very, very simple marble sorter, and I only needed to use a motor and a servo, 2 limit switches, to be able to control everything. So let's take a look at my code. Here's my code, and the bulk of my code, and I'm just going to kind of move past my variables right now, is from task main to here. Again, that is basically my marble sorter code. So the first thing I do is I want this to continue to repeat for as long as it needs to until all the marbles are sorted. So I have a while statement. I just wrote in true instead of 1 = 1. That will just give me a true statement. What I immediately do is I turn the flashlight on, and then I wait 1 second. And I wait 1 second just to make sure all my marbles are set up, they're in the right location before it starts to sense them. At that point, I'm using a if, and then an else if, and an else structure to sort the 3 different types of marbles. So for me, when I went and I tested my black marbles, I found that most of their values were over 300. Actually, all of them were. So I said, if the sensor value of my light sensor is greater than a value of 300, then run the code inside. And inside this code, it looks again very simple. I have 2 functions in this code. I have a move servo function, which I won't go too deep into this, but essentially it's just a set servo function that I made that increments the amount a servo will turn so it doesn't turn too fast. So again, it says right here, it moves the servo at a slower pace to a 60-degree mark. After it moves that servo to that 60-degree mark, it will then run a kick command. And all that kick command is code to turn this motor on until this indicator hits this limit switch, and then reverse that motor after it's kicked the marble back to a home position, so it's allowed the next marble to flow into position. So that's what this kick function does. Again, an action that pushes the marble into the bin, and this is my pseudocode. If that light sensor is not greater than 300, meaning it's less than 300, it'll move to this else if. And this else if is if the sensor value light sensor is greater than 30, which would be my blue marble. And yeah, blues have a pretty big range in this case. They went all the way from 30 to about 200 for me with some of the blues. Again, you really want to test your blues before you set a concrete value. So if it's greater than 30, I did the same thing. I have a function that moves the servo to roughly 30 degrees, and then it will kick the marble into that bin. And then finally, I just have an else command, because since my aluminum have been sorted through size, if it's not black, so this is not true, and it's not blue, so this is not true, then it's got to be clear. So it'll just go into this position where it'll move the servo to roughly 0 degrees, and it will kick it into that location. My function, and remember you have to write a function for yours, is the function called kick. And for me, the kick will start the motor at a speed of -30 until touch, which is what I call my limit 2, my second limit switch. It will start the motor in this case reverse from -30, which is +15. It's a little slower. until it gets back to its home position until touch again. Once that code has run once, it is no longer executed, and wherever it is, this will go back and identify look at the condition of the while statement. It says yes, it's still true. It will keep the flashlight on. It will wait 1 second, and then it'll evaluate the next marble. At this point, this is really all you need to know to really get a bare bones, here's what I want my code to do. For you, you might have gates opening and closing. So you could have something like gate 1 or gate 2 functions in which you'll write what that code is. You might have a motor turn on until so many encoder counts, and then you might reverse that motor until so many encoder counts. You might have a motor that runs on a potentiometer, okay? You can do that. So there's a lot of different ways to get functions in here. Mine was very, very simple. I wanted to keep my material sorter simple. At that point, if you feel confident, you can move on. If you want to dive a little bit deeper in this program, stick around right now, because I'm going to talk to you about my move servo command, or my function that I built here for my move servo. One of the things that I found with my particular marble sorter after the first time I made it was that when this would set its position to a new place, it would move so fast that marbles would go flying out of my bin. They won't count anymore if they do that. They have to be in that bin when the program's terminated. So what I needed to do is figure out, is there any way you can slow a servo down? The answer is no, there is not. The servo is going to move at a set speed to the position that you detail it at. But I found a way around it. And here's how I found a way around it. Up here, I initialized a variable called current position, and I set it to 0. Then inside my function move servo, I created another variable called target position. So for this move servo command, you're going to put in the position you want the servo to go to, and I just called this target position. Now down in my code for this, what it's going to do is it's going to say while the current position does not equal the target position. So again, say I want to go to -120 to kick into the clear bin, and I'm currently at the blue bin because that's the last marble I sorted. So they'll say, okay, I'm at -60, I need to get to -20. So I need to move -60, I guess, degree marks or power marks. Well, while the current position does not equal the target position, look at the code. Well, right now it doesn't. -60 does not equal -20. So I am going to look at this first statement. If the current position is less than or equal to the target position, run this code. Well, let's look up here. I'm at -60, and I want to go to -20. So the current position is -60. Is that less than the target position? No, it's not. So it's not going to run this code because this isn't true. So instead, since this isn't true, it's going to run this code in the else, which it's going to set the servo, and my servo name is bin. That's what I named it up here in my motors and sensors setup for my motors here, bin. Is going to set that bin. Again, what is bin? Bin is this servo. Again, it's moving the bin. So it's going to set that bin at the current position. Well, its current position is -60. So the first iteration through this, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to say, okay, set it to -60. I'm already at -60. Then it's going to wait 100 milliseconds, which is about 1/10 a second. And then it's going to increment. It's going to take that current position, and it's going to say the current position now is going to equal the current position -5. So I'm at -60. It is going to take -60 minus 5, which is going to be -65. So my new variable current position is -65. -65 then is going to be set to the servo. It's going to wait 1 millisecond, and it's going to decrement. I'm sorry, this is called a decrement when you're minusing. It's going to decrement again and go to -70. And it is going to continue to do that until this statement is no longer true. So when negative 20, so when at some point it'll be negative 20, does not equal negative 20, well, that is a false statement. So this function will cease, meaning I will move out of this function right here. I've set it correctly, and I'm going to go into the kick function. So if you get a chance, I can demo the marble sorter to you, so can Mr. McCabe, and you can see how it actually turns. So again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just slowly scroll through my code, and I'm not going to say anything here. I'm going to slowly scroll through it so you can see what it's like, and feel free to, use this as a base for your code.